Awesome. Remember, this is session 5 of our effective leadership course, all part of training you to be the best leader you can be. And the title of today's webinar is The Route to Leadership is Problem Solving. If you want to be a leader, if you want people to accept you as a leader, if you want people to view you as a leader, you need to be able to solve problems. That's what makes you a leader. That's what gives you the doorway into leadership. If you're working for an organization, the more problems you solve, the more likely you are to get promoted. If you're in a Christian ministry, the more problems you solve, the more likely you are to get promoted. If you want any kind of promotion, any kind of ministry opportunity, you have to learn to solve problems. Okay. Why did David become king of the nation? Because he solved a giant big problem called Goliath. Okay. Who can solve a problem like Goliath? Well, whoever can is going to get promoted. Okay. Jesus is the reason you worship Jesus. The reason he's the captain of your salvation is because he solved the problem of sin and death. Muhammad didn't solve it. Buddha didn't solve it. No one else solved it. So we followed Jesus. The problems you solve are the key to the capacity of your leadership developing, to your promotion. If you solve more car problems, you'll be a better mechanic than a mechanic who can only solve a couple of car problems. You can solve better emotional problems, you'll be a better mum than the mum who can only solve a few emotional problems. If you solve better legal problems, then you'll be a better lawyer. If you solve better relationship problems, you'll be a better pastor. So the problems we solve increase our leadership capacity and enable that leadership to be visible to others. People, well, that's a leader. Why? Because he solved a problem. So the path to leadership, the route to leadership is problem solving. Now, every one of us, every single one of us has been created by God to solve different problems, okay? And one of the keys to being an effective leader is to not try and solve every problem, because you're not called to solve every problem. You're not designed to solve every problem. You're not able to solve every problem. So you have to find out and recognize and learn to discover and learn to discern the problems that God has designed you and called you to solve. And then when you solve those problems, that is your route to leadership. It's also the reward. It's also your reward in life. To rejoice in your labor, Ecclesiastes 5:19, that is the gift of God. So if you're doing something, you're not rejoicing in it all the time, then maybe you need an attitude check. Maybe you're just a negative person who's repent and be positive, but maybe it's not where you're supposed to be. Maybe you're trying to solve the wrong sort of problems. Now, the good news is, and it's liberating when you realize this, you're not called to solve every problem for every person, okay? That is vital for leadership. It is just as important, equally as important, that you know what not to do, what problems not to solve, what people you're not called to, as what you're called to do. Jesus was happy to walk away from the Pharisees. He said, look, I'm here to those who know they're sick. Those who are sick need a doctor. And I'm not going to spend my time trying to help those who incorrectly presume they're whole, because that's not my calling. You know, when you realize that, it really is liberating to know what you're called to do, to know what you're called not to do. So it's a big question. A lot of people ask me this question: how can I recognize the problem that God designed and called me to solve? Now people phrase it in different ways. How do I know the will of God for my life? How do I know what my destiny is? How do I know what God's called me to do? But really what you're asking is, what's the problem I'm called to solve? Who are the people I'm called to? And I believe there's 5 ways. I believe there's 5 ways in which you can know. That there's other ways as well, but these are the 5 main ways. Number 1, and again, I've talked about this at length as we started lockdown, but it needs to be said in the context of leadership, because you'll never be a leader unless you know what problems you're called to solve. Excuse me a second. So the first one is anger. Now we have this issue, don't we, as Christians? Because we see anger as this negative emotion. Everything's wrong with that. You should never get angry. Don't let the sun go down your anger, blah, blah. You know, actually, don't let the sun go down your anger. Ephesians 4:24 means don't stop being angry. Be angry and sin not. There are some sins that you will never stop until you get angry. There are some problems you'll never solve until you get angry. Jesus got angry when they turned his father's house into a den of robbers. And he cleared that temple at least twice, according to the Gospels. At least twice, Jesus went into that temple and just cleared everyone out. and stop them ripping people off, stop them injuring people and bruising people who are coming to worship God. Because why? Because that's Jesus' calling in life, is to make a path between us and the Father. And those people were stopping it and obscuring it. And the temple at that time, the old covenant, the temple was the one place you could go meet God. It's where God wanted to dwell with people. And Jesus was like, how dare you stand between people and God? And he's still at that today. He still gets angry at that today. That's still his calling today. What the problem that winds you up is the problem you're called to solve. Number two is passion. What are you passionate about? What you love doing? God is not stupid. He didn't design you to do something to make you hate doing it. I realized that in the middle of a computer science degree. Okay, I don't like working with computers all day. I can, I'm capable, but I don't like it. I like people. And there were a lot of people in my class at university who, without being rude to them, almost on the autistic spectrum, they didn't need to fellowship. They didn't need to, they could sit and spend 3 days looking at a piece of code, and I couldn't do it. I knew I wasn't designed to do it. And so I left and went to Bible school. At the same time, I also was angry at the lack of good Bible teaching in the country, angry at the lack of good faith teaching in the country. I was passionate about getting the word out to people. The third thing is grief. What grieves you? The problem that upsets you is the problem you're called to solve. Number four is jealousy. Again, jealousy is not a negative emotion. Envy is. Where envy and strife is, James 3:16 is every evil work. Envy is destructive. Jealousy is not. Jealousy, Deuteronomy 4:24 says God is a jealous God. So if God's jealous, then jealousy can't be bad. It can turn bad, just like any emotion can turn bad. But jealousy is, you look at someone else and think, man, I really wish I could do that. I really want to do that. I've seen a lot of healing services, and oh, that's nice. That's a nice healing ministry. Oh, that's a nice healing ministry. Oh, that's a nice healing ministry. But it wasn't until I saw Dave Duell start to minister that I get jealous. It's like, man, I want to be like that. I want to heal the sick, but still have fun. I want to heal the sick and not get legalistic. I want to heal the sick and not look like I'm, I've been in those kind of meetings. I don't want to go back to those kind of meetings. And that jealousy actually provoked me to find out what Dave did. Eventually became a very dear friend, him and Bonnie, before he passed away. And Bonnie's still a precious friend to us. But it was jealousy of that. And I backed off from Dave when I first saw him minister because I didn't like feeling jealous, because I've been told jealousy is bad. No, envy's bad. And then someone's going to ask, what's the difference between jealousy and envy? No one's actually tagged it in yet, but most people are asking it when I talk this. Well, if I turned up at church first week back from lockdown, I've got a nice new Mercedes, I've got a beautiful new car, and God's given me this beautiful new car. It's a beautiful testimony, it's fruitful. Okay. Jealousy is saying, man alive, God, you don't love Ben anymore, you love me. I want a new car. I want to start believing for a new car. And jealousy will provoke you to good works. Envy is when you start keying my car. And you shouldn't have that car. I should have that blessing, not him. Okay. So envy takes it away from, I want a similar blessing. I want to be able to move in the same sort of thing. And envy is when you want to be destructive and say, look, I don't think that person should have a healing ministry because they don't pray as much as me or whatever. So jealousy is like, man, I want to have a healing ministry like that. Envy is like, I want their ministry, I want their man, I want their success, and I'll cut them down to get it. Okay. But there's room for jealousy in the Christian world because there's so many more people to minister to. There's no room for envy. Whereas envy and strife is every evil work. It was actually envy that really caused Satan to lose his mantle and his heavenly position. Okay. And then the fifth one is, and this is the last one, by the way, it's not the first one, because God often calls us to do things we're not gifted to do, and then creates that gift as we do them. But the fifth one is gifting. Okay. There are some people who I know, they come and tell me, I'm called to preach, and I know they're not called to preach, because if you listen to them more than 5 minutes, you're going to fall asleep. Okay. And so there's a gifting element to it, but God can always create gifting. Okay. When God gives a call, he can create gifting. So it's the least of them, but it is a clue as well. Okay. So I hope that's helped you all there. Recognize, man, I've got some problems to solve and some problems not to solve, and start solving the problems God's called you to solve, and stop wasting your time on stuff God's not called you to. Now, what happens when you solve problems? Solving problems brings all sorts of rewards into your life. Okay. Who wants to be rewarded? Amen. You want some rewards in your life. It'll bring you new friends. David killed Goliath, and he got a new best friend, Jonathan. He got a new wife, Michal. Rebecca solves the problem of Isaac's camels being thirsty and gets married out of that. Man, that's a simple problem to solve, to get married. So it brings you new friends, brings you new relationships. Number two, it brings you new positions. Joseph solved the famine problem and became prime minister. That's a pretty good thing, isn't it? You solve problems, you get promoted. It'll bring you new fame. Daniel became famous because he solved the king's depression, nightmares. Joseph got promoted and became famous. David, they started singing songs about David because he solved the Goliath problem. So solving problems makes you famous. I've solved the problem of how you start a TV ministry from England. And now there are TV stations that carry me just because I'm from England, because I'm a novelty. I'm novel to them. And I get discounts, I get open doors that I wouldn't get if I wasn't English, because I've solved the problem. How do you get on TV from England? Okay. And so solving a problem brings you new levels of fame. It brings you new revelations. The more problems you solve, you're sowing into that, you get a harvest of that, and the more problems you then can solve. And it brings you new income as well. The wealthiest men on planet Earth are not the men who work the hardest. Okay. Jeff Bezos, almost a trillionaire. Do you think he works 1 trillion times harder than you? He doesn't work, he probably does work harder than you, but doesn't work 1 trillion times harder than you. No, he solved the problem. He solved one of the most universal problems, and that's we all want stuff, and we want it tomorrow, and we don't want to go out and get it. That's a universal problem in the Western world, and he solved it. Okay? I remember I did my degree in computing science in 1994. That's when I started. I remember using MS-DOS. I remember Windows 98 came out in 98. So I remember when Windows 3.1 came out when I was doing it. So Bill Gates solved a problem in that computers are horrible to talk to. Computers are horrible to type into. Using a keyboard, it's just not fun. You'll remember these words, remember this, remember that. I'm at university learning this stuff. And suddenly Bill Gates turns up and goes, look, here's a mouse, guys. Look, use your mouse and you can click on that and it'll do what you want. And he solved the problem of how to talk to computers that made him a multi-billionaire. Okay, so solving problems is what brings you more income, not working harder. Okay, so that's the power of solving problems. So when problems come our way, you see, this is the thing. We've got to change our attitude. So many people are scared of problems. We run away from problems. And Christian, we want to have a life with no problems. No. You must embrace problems, face problems, conquer problems. In Israel, with no Goliath, we still have Saul as king. It wouldn't be as good as if David was king. Okay? And so problems actually change things for the better. And so you can conquer problems, you can profit from problems. When everyone else sees a problem and runs away from it, if you're running at it and say, well, I've got a solution for this, then you develop your leadership. You get promoted as a leader. And so that's one of the reasons why people see me as a leader. It's because I won't run away from a problem. I'll face it down, and I'll try and help. I'll try and make it better, and I'll try and change it. You have to realize life's tough and life has problems. You got to just admit that. Life in this fallen world, it has problems, but if you solve problems, you make life easier for people. I'm solving an information problem right now, okay? You don't know how to solve problems. I'm teaching you how to solve problems, so I'm solving your lack of ability to solve problems. I'm going to help you win as a leader, so I'm solving that problem in your life, which is why Saturday morning you're listening to me rather than having a lie-in, rather than whatever else. Okay, whenever you solve a problem, you add value to people's lives. And as a leader, your life is not your own. And as a leader, you shouldn't be thinking about, just yourself. False alarm. You should be thinking about the people you're leading and let their problems become your. How can I solve their problems? How can I solve the church's problems? So right now we're in lockdown for another month in the UK. Yay. Okay. What's going to be your problem in lockdown? Loneliness, not having someone to ask for prayer, not being able to go to church. Okay, so we've got online services, we've got daily prayer meetings. What am I trying to do? Solve your problem. I've got a meeting on Wednesday for the primary school age children with Lydia. Why? Because that's a problem. Children aren't going to Sunday school. Children aren't hearing the word. Okay, so I'm thinking of all the problems you could have. How am I going to solve them? Okay, some of you might be on furlough pay. Some of you might be hungry. Some of you might have lost your jobs. Okay, well, I've got savings in the church bank account ready for that. And we're starting a system where people can let us know. And, we've already helped someone yesterday. And so we're solving problems. I'm a leader. I can't just think about my problems. I don't think, I can't say, well, oh man, I can't go to church. I can't go to the cinema. I can't go out to the gym. And I've got to go start thinking of other people's problems. Okay. And so in an organization that's organized well, okay, so when you talk about something growing, problems should be solved at the lowest possible level. Okay. So if there's a problem in a small group, and I'm talking about church because that's my experience, but in your business, you can relate this to business. in the small group, if there's a problem in the small group, the elder should solve it. Okay? If the elder can't solve it, the pastor of that church should solve it. Okay? Now, what does that mean? Well, it means for me, okay, what do I get? I get the difficult problems. Most problems in the small groups are easy and they're solved by the elders. Some problems are a little bit harder, solved by the pastors. But I only get the really hard problems that the elder can't solve, the pastor can't solve. And then what happens? The pastor and the elder phone me, and that's something I get given the difficult problems. Okay? You get more difficult problems the higher up an organization you go. You get a wider range of problems. Your problems are more crisis level. They're more difficult to solve. So if you want to grow as a leader, if you want to be promoted, if you want to be at the top of the org chart, you have to learn to solve the difficult problems. So all of us need to learn skills in how to solve problems, okay? So let's do that now. Let's talk about how to develop your problem-solving skills. The number one skill you must learn to solve problems, the number one skill is the ability to separate yourself, to distance yourself from the problem. If I have a really difficult problem, I often get a piece of paper, just a piece of A4 paper, like this, nothing magical about it, and I will write the problem on the piece of paper, and I will very deliberately put the problem on the table, because now it's not my problem, it's now a problem. I want the problem out of my heart, out of my mind, and I want it on the table. I want to be distant from it, because it's very hard to solve problems when we take everything so personally, okay? And that can take me an hour of prayer sometimes, not always, it only takes me a few minutes, but sometimes it can take an hour and a half of prayer to get the problem out of my heart, to get myself distance from it, okay? I need to understand if it's not, how do I express this? Some people are going to be closer to this problem than others, and you need to get the right amount of distance from the problem. How does that make sense? I'll give you an example. When they built the shuttle, the space shuttle that they used to go into space, the actual shuttle, when they stopped using rockets and built the shuttle, there was a war in NASA, a little war between engineers and scientists. You see, scientists, their issue is that you go into space and it's all about science. And so we want this, the space vessel, we want as many different scientific machines on it as possible. We want to measure space. We want to measure what it's like space travel on the crew. We want to gather data from the stars because we're out of the atmosphere. We want to take plants up there and measure the plants. And we want to do this and do this. And so we want to stuff this shuttle full of scientific machines. Well, the engineer said, no. That space, what we want in space is backup systems. Space is tough. If something messes up in space, you're in trouble. We want backup systems. We want a second engine in there. We want a second autopilot. We want backup devices. We want backup circuits. We want to fill a lot of that space with redundant circuits. And there was a big argument going on. Well, this went on for a long time until NASA realized, let's ask the actual astronauts. Unanimously and unsurprisingly, the astronauts all wanted backup systems. They were the people who the problem affected. So they had to have a say in the decision. And I'm always trying to do that as a pastor. I don't always get it right, but dealing with a situation yesterday in one of the churches, not Dagenham, one of the churches, don't know as pastors, don't name who, don't name the problem, don't name the pastor. And I said, look, that's going to affect you. Whatever way we call this, it's going to affect you as the pastor. It's not going to affect me so much, it's going to affect you. So you make the call, and I trust you to make the call. Let the people who are close to the problem have the say in the decision. And so you need to think as a leader, who's close to this problem and who's far away from this problem. First thing, get away from being personal. It's not personal, okay? Get it away from being personal, get it on the table, and then think about who's close to this. Who will benefit if I solve this problem? Come out of your office, okay? Come out of your ivory tower and go and meet the people. I know about a church. They didn't know. The leadership of the church did not know that this church had terrible sound problems. The PA was not working in that church. It was terrible. The preaching sounded terrible because the pastor always sat in the front row and the worship sounded fine there. Go and sit at the back for a week. Go and sit somewhere else. Go and, and other problems we can be too close to and we need to distance ourselves from it. Other problems we can be too far away from. They say, well, I didn't realize that was a problem. Sometimes someone will come in and say, that's a real problem, Pastor. And I didn't know it. Okay. And so that's what I mean by appropriate difference. Jen's asked a great question. And I will come to that. That's a great question, Jen, about, solving other people's problems for them. Okay. Number two, you just need to accept this. Accept this now. Problem solving is your life. Okay. Problems are like dust. You can be the best duster in the world, dust everything in your house. And what happens tomorrow? There's more dust. You're never done dusting. You're never done hoovering. You're never done some task. Problem solving is the same. You need to develop an attitude that says, right, I'm not going to get upset about that. I'm not going to get wound up by that. I've had a couple of pastors come to me recently, not True Life ones, and say, I want to start a second church. But they're overwhelmed by the problems in the first church. They don't have this, come on, let's take it. I think, well, if you have two churches, that's double the problems. And how are you going to cope with that? You need an attitude that says, I enjoy solving problems. Number three, you've got to be pragmatic. Pragmatic means you've got to do something that works. Okay? One of the big problems that comes to problem solving, one of the big questions you've got to ask yourself is, will it work? Okay, you might have this beautiful solution on paper. It sounds beautiful, but will it work? And more importantly, will it work with those people? Right? So I might start a new church somewhere in the country and go, right, all that church needs a pastor. So I have my piece of paper. There's the problem. I've started a church. I can't drive there every Sunday night because I've got other things to do. I need a pastor. Well, that's a great solution, isn't it? But where is the pastor? I don't have one. Is this solution going to work with the people I've got around me? No. So, a problem in Watford might not be solved the same way in Guildford because it might not have the same people. And that comes a lot down, especially with technical problems. Guildford, of all the churches, just seems to have a raft of people who are very, very technically able. And so that's why Guildford's online video on Sunday mornings first. And I mean, Richard said to me, he said, Ben, you're not going to feel in competition. I don't feel in competition. I want to promote Guildford. I want to promote what? I want to promote all that pastor. No sense of that at all. The problem's here. It's not personal to me. It's not about promoting my ministry. It's about getting the gospel out there. But it was much easier for us to start live streaming video from Guildford than it was from Dagenham, Watford, or any of the other churches, just because of the people there. Will it work? I said, well, I want to have Dagenham as the first church to live stream. Well, you can't really film video in that cinema because it's so dark. That's another factor. So a solution that we cannot implement is a rubbish solution, no matter how elegant and beautiful it is. Different people in your team, at work, at church, wherever, different people have different limitations. They've got different emotions, different strengths, and your solution has to work for the people you have. You cannot have a solution that doesn't work for the people that are there. You naturally say, well, I'm going to solve it. But at the same time, you can't damage the people you're leading with your solution. Okay. Number four, and this is wonderful, you can prevent some problems. You can solve them before they even happen. As you start to get more experienced, you realize, first of all, that you cause problems yourself sometimes, and you start to walk in a way that avoids them. Okay. But you can stop some problems off. We make problems worse. Number one, when we lose perspective. Remember what I said about the task of leadership on this? The essence of leadership is priorities. If you don't start prioritizing properly, you'll create more problems. Another issue, and again, it's a priority problem, but it's a very specific one to leaders, especially Christian leaders, is if you neglect your devotional life, okay, because you're so busy, you forget to pray, you forget to read your Bible, you forget to have a devotional life, you're going to cause so many more problems in your church. I know so many pastors who've caused problems because they didn't pray about something. They didn't spend time with the Lord. They lost that sweetness with the Lord. They lost that love. And it just, or if you lose your sense of humor, if you lose your sense of perspective on things, if you start having a pity party, how's everyone else going to cope? You start blaming others for things that you're in charge of. At the end of the day, I go back and say, it's my fault because I'm in charge. And if you wish for things to change rather than work for things to change, things are not going to change for the better by magic. You have to get in there and do something. Another thing is this, and this is a wonderful thing. Good problem solving develops character. Because if a problem comes at you, the first thing that happens is it exposes your weaknesses. If you're stressed and you're annoyed and you're, oh my goodness, then the first problem's in you. You got stressed by the problem. That's the first problem to solve. Your character's not at the right place yet. And handling problems won't just make you a better leader, it'll make you a better person. A lot of people don't realize this link. A lot of problems, a lot of people don't realize this. People think that if we just put a camera, just a camera over there. A lot of problems are solved badly Not because of lack of skill, but because of a lack of character. Let me say that again. A lot of problems are solved badly, not because we have a lack of skill, we have a lack of character. Part of character building is being able to handle the problem, stop wishing life was easier. That's a lack of character, to want an easy life all the time. And start looking for ways that you can grow, you can mature, you can develop, that when these problems come, you can handle them. Most advances in human history, most advances in technology did not happen in ease. They happened in problems. Most advances in the gospel went out to the world happened when there was great problems for Christians. Problems shouldn't break us, they should make us, but we need the character. Okay, you need a character. A lot of problems, a lot of solutions are not implemented because someone doesn't have the humility to do something differently. Someone doesn't have the humility to step out of the way and let someone else do something. A lot of pastors can't pastor a second church and run a second church because they don't like someone else getting promoted. They don't like someone else being exalted. Okay, because there's a lot of people in Tree of Life who love Richard and Jackie, and they love Lee, and they love patience. And I know pastors who couldn't handle that. I know people, and it's not skill, it's character. Problem solving builds character, and we need character to keep solving problems. Problem solving well builds good teams as well. So I always think, I don't know what someone's really like as a person until I've seen them with a problem. Okay? I'm very careful never to appoint leaders I haven't seen solve a problem. You know, Paul, the Apostle Paul, was bitten by a snake because he thought it was a stick. Now, when I read that in the Bible, I thought, Paul, are you stupid? How can you mistake a snake for a stick? How can you get a snake and a stick confused? I mean, what kind of stupid is that? But what happens is when snakes are really cold, when snakes are cold, they go rigid, they look like a stick. And so Paul picks up the snake, it's a stick, and he throws it in the fire. And it's the fire that wakes up the snake, and then the snake bites him. And it's not a stick, it's a snake. And I've put sticks into church leadership in the past, and then the fire comes on them, the fire of trouble, and I found out that wasn't a stick. I made the same mistake as Paul. It turns out that person was actually a snake, and they bit me. And so now I wait till I've seen people in the fire before I bring them into leadership at Tree of Life, because I don't want to get bit. Okay, so I've seen someone solve a problem, so I've seen someone deal with a problem, I don't know who they are, and you don't know who they are. And so some people, when a problem happens in a group of people, let's say a problem happens in a church, right? So one of our churches, a problem happens. There'll be some people who will be actively trying to make that problem worse. They will. Some people are trying to put out flames with vodka. Man, they're just there, okay? So there's those people, okay? Some people seem to me that they're problem magnets. Some people are problem magnets. And so we attract like. Problem people attract problem people. And if you focus on your problems will get worse. If you talk your problems will get worse. If you declare your problems, but if you focus on possibilities, your possibilities will get bigger. And your solutions will get bigger. Problem attractors are negative people with no faith. Now, I was taught when I did teaching, you need those kind of people in your team. You need a black hat person, you need a negative thinker. But you know what? Over the years, I've realized I don't believe that, because they're negative at everything, you know? And so when I first started True Life, I made sure I had people like that around me, negative people. I've got some positive people and some negative people. I've got both sides, because that's what I was taught in business. And what I found is the negative people are just negative at everything. Oh yeah, they're going to let you down. 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 Then when someone does let me down, they go, I told you so. But that's not wisdom. That's just statistics. Okay. You just got it right once in a while. And so now I don't surround myself with negative people. I learn, I've developed, and I'm not involved in that anymore. Some people will leave your church because there's a small problem. Some people will quit their job because there's a small problem. Some people quit church, there's one tiny little problem. Some people stop tithing, there's a one tiny little bill. Some people will fall at this tiny little temptation and they'll get into sin, tiny temptation. Some people will not do a task and it turns out to be slightly hard. Okay, that is not a problem-solving attitude. You need to be the person who finds a solution. And a lot of young people today, I'm being critical of young people, but a lot of young people today, due to the way we're raising young people now, due to the way the education system is now, they have this attitude that if things are slightly tough, we just quit. They don't have this grit that says, I need to solve this problem. And our job as older people in the church especially is to help show people who solve problems, cultivate a solution mindset. And then we need to be the people, not the people who quit, not the people who attract problems. We need to be people who use problems as an opportunity to move forward. Okay. I saw a study this week, 75% of people who are at the top of their field, the very, very top of their field, the very best doctors, the very best lawyers, the very best accountants, 75% of people came from a background of poverty. They came from a broken family. And 25% of people at the very top of their field are actually physically handicapped in some way, blind, deaf, or whatever. That's staggering statistics. What's happened is they've taken those adversities and they've learned how to solve problems. They weren't overwhelmed by the problems. They've used them as a way to learn how to develop character and gain ground. Who are you going to be? Are you going to be a problem solver? It's not about circumstances. It's about choices you make. And one of your tasks as a leader of others is to know how the people around you handle problems. I know when a problem happens. I know if a problem happened in Guildford on Sunday, we're not meeting at all, but if a problem in Guildford on Sunday, I know roughly Richard can handle that, no problems, or no, Richard can't really handle that, I need to get involved. And it's different from Richard and Lee and Patience and the different pastors because they're different. And I know as well in Dagenham, as a pastor of Dagenham, I know what my small group leaders can deal with and what they can't. I know where people are. I do have a tendency to overestimate people. I'm quite a positive person, you know, but I always tell if you need help, tell me, you know. And so you need to know those things. You need to be aware of those things. Watch people solve problems and help them solve problems until they get experience. And that really comes back to, it's a good time now to answer Jenny's question, which is, do you think people expect other problem solving too much, therefore never learn to solve them themselves? How do you help them independent? And what you do, Jenny, is you get alongside them at first, and you definitely start off solving problems for people, okay? But then you then let them watch you solve the problem, and then you move forward, okay? And so you start off with them, then you back off and you back off until people develop that attitude. I'm going to solve this. I can do this. And that's really the problem. The problem's not the problem. The problem is your attitude to the problem. And you know, well, if you're going to do it for me. And here's the thing, Jen, if you're going to jump in and do it every time it gets tough for someone, they're not going to ever learn how to handle it when it gets tough. And so, you know, I've seen pastors do that in churches. They'll jump in every time it gets tough. Sometimes you've got to work that out for yourself. You've got to deal with this yourself, especially when I'm raising up people to be other leaders. Okay? And one of your tasks of leadership is what kind of problem can I give someone? And that they're going to thrive. And so when people start seeing you solve problems, this is really important. They see you've got an attitude to say, I want to solve this. You're creative. You've got character. Then they will adopt your approach. Because remember, you're the leader. They want to be like you. They want you to like them. They want to be respected. And so I ask people to consult with me as well. You know, if you're a deacon in the church or you're a pastor in one of the Tree of Lives, I say, don't make a big change without asking me, because I'm good at solving problems. I'm good at seeing the big picture. And one of the things you can do to help yourself solve a problem is, again, that piece of paper, fold it into four like this. Look at that. That's not magic. Just fold it in half, fold it in half. Again, this is really simple stuff, okay? And then write 4 solutions. I'm going to come up with 4 solutions to this problem. Okay, we have a brand new problem next week that I've never faced before in my life. And it's a problem that's caused by success. Some problems are caused by failure, some problems are caused by success. And I've got to work out how to deal with it. And I've been consulting with Amanda and Lee. I'm about to contact Richard and Jackie. I haven't this week because it's been Jackie's birthday and I don't want to. So it's not a bad problem, it's a good problem. Some problems are good problems. You know, what we're going to do, you know, with all this extra money we've got, what we're going to do with this, we're going to do that. You know, there's good problems in life too. Most problems start as emergency. Most people never get beyond emergency problems. So when they hear the word problem, you know, they are great problems. Man, we got to have more. We've got more trash than we know what to deal with. We've got more of this. We've got more. You know, there's a problem. A surplus can cause a problem, but it's actually a good problem I'm facing. I won't tell you too many details, but I'm going to come up with 4 solutions to it over the weekend. And then, man, that piece of paper really messes up the camera, doesn't it? You know, it doesn't know what to do with the lighting there with a white piece of paper. So. I'm so bright now. Wait till it tunes down. Whoa, look at that. Okay, so, you know, come with multiple solutions. And then, so let's say I'm training someone to be a leader. So I could go to Lee with a problem. I go, right, Lee, give me 4 solutions on this. Okay. And then we then get the team together and say, well, let's have a look at Lee's 4 solutions and let's think which one's the best. And remember, if you're a leader, it was an easy problem. It got solved well before it got to you. Okay, you're the leader. They're coming to you because it's too difficult. Okay, so how do I solve any problem? Let me give you a guide to solve any specific problem. Okay, number one, develop your walk with God. Who is the greatest problem solver in the world? God, Jesus. Look to Jesus. Jesus is the best problem solver in the world. God knew the problem was coming. God is expert at this. The more you realize that God's got a solution, the more creative you're going to be, the more faith-filled you're going to be, the more expectant you're going to be, the more resilient you're going to be. Walk with God. Spend time with the Lord. Okay, that's number one. Number two, look ahead. Don't wait till problems arrive. Your job as a leader is to see where we're going. That's one of your 3 tasks as a leader. See where we're going, work out the steps, and bring people with you. Okay, so you should be looking where we're going and say, oh, there's problems ahead. A good boxer knows the punch is coming before the punch comes, and he gets out of the way before it even comes. That's how you become a good leader. You know there's going to be a problem. If we do this, there's going to be a problem. Okay, they saw the signs. Okay, and so my problem solving with people, and I'll tell some of my past, if you appoint that person as a leader, you're gonna have problems. Why? Because I've appointed every bad leader you can appoint. Okay, good leaders anticipate problems, and then we need to become more analytical. Don't assume. Don't assume, oh, this is going to play out like this. This is going to happen like this, right? Look at your problem, find out about it, get some details. And remember, a lot of times people call something a problem. It's not a problem, it's a decision. People come and go, oh, Pastor, I got a problem. I don't know whether to spend Christmas with my parents or her parents. That's not a problem. That's a decision. A decision is a simple list of alternatives. A problem is something that stops you moving forward. That's what a problem is. Okay, so let's be accurate about telling you what problem is. Okay, that's not a problem, that's a decision. Okay, your first issue is to accurately define the problem. You know, now I believe in faith. I believe we should be people of hope and optimism. I believe in the word of God. I believe in faith. But faith doesn't mean if you walk into the room, there's an elephant in the room or a tiger in the room, that you can just close your eyes and pretend it's not there. No, there's a problem. God did not ignore the fact that you're a sinner. He didn't ignore the fact that you were spiritually dead. He didn't ignore the fact you were sick. He evaluated that problem accurately and then sent Jesus to solve it. That's what true faith is, not closing your eyes and pretending it's not there. So you have to learn how to look at a problem and go, right, what's the solution for this? And so you can ask yourself, where can I get the best solution for this problem? Question number one, who knows the problem the most? I guarantee you've never faced a problem that someone else hasn't faced before. And I guarantee someone's written a book about it, or someone you might actually know knows about it. You don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you face a problem. Okay? Now, I've told some of this before, but I had a problem with a guest speaker once. They came and they ministered, and we had a couple of problems while they were there, but then they left. And they wrote me a letter, and they basically told me we were a terrible church, we weren't a good host. It was a horrible letter. I didn't know how to respond. I didn't know what to do. And this guest speaker knew other guest speakers that I knew and invited, and I was quite concerned. But then I realized Greg Moore runs a Bible college with guest speakers. Sometimes I have 3 or 4 different guest speakers a day. So he knows about guest speakers. And so I called him, and he was actually in the UK, just come back from Europe ministering. He was in the UK overnight. So we drove to Heathrow, where he was staying, a hotel in Heathrow. And we took him out for dinner, and he helped us solve the problem. Okay, you don't have to solve every problem on your own, but who do I go to? Well, who knows the problem the most? Who's faced that before? Okay. Number 2, who knows you the most? One of the great joys of having Robert Mars back as my pastor is it's not so much about is the problem solved, but do I act with character? Do I act with integrity? That's what he cares about. And he'll hold me, Ben, this is your vision for Tree of Life. This is your character. This is who you are. This is what Tree of Life is. And you know, if you lose who you are by solving this problem, you've messed up. You need people who know who you are and can help you solve that problem as you. Be authentic. Okay? God called you to solve a problem, not someone else. But don't try and do it someone else's way. Number 3, who wants to win? Okay? Whoever wants to win the most is who's going to solve it first. You know, dealing with problems is hard work. So find someone with some passion. Find someone, man, I want to solve that. I want to get that right. Okay? Number 4 is be honest. How big is this problem? Some problems you can solve in a day and they're solved and it's over and it's done. Other problems will take a week, a month. Some problems will take years to solve. Okay? Some problems will take a long time to solve. You need to be persistent and dogmatic, but don't try and solve a problem in a day. It takes years, and don't take years to solve something you can solve quickly. Okay. Sometimes couples come to me with marriage problems, and I mean problems, not decisions, problems, obstacles in their marriage that stop them moving forward. Something that's happened, something that's done, something that's stopping them moving forward in the marriage. And sometimes those things cannot be solved in a day. And they're upset at me that I couldn't just pray a magic prayer and magically make their problem. No, they've got to deal with it. They've got to learn to trust each other again. They've got to learn how to argue with each other. They've got to learn skills that you can't just happen in a minute. Don't take years. There are problems in this nation that can take years. If you spent 40 years getting yourself into debt, you're not going to be out of debt tomorrow. Okay? Well, I bought my lottery tickets. Don't even start with me. Okay? Another question you have to ask as a leader, okay, and I talked about this when we talked about change last week, is do I have enough trust built up with people to solve this? Problem solving will change things. Okay? Remember I said we need change, we need trust from the people. Maybe you can't solve a certain problem because not everyone trusts you quite yet. And now that's your problem. Your problem is people don't trust me enough. So I'm going to go and teach some great sermons, build some people up, love some people for the next year, and then I'm in a position where I can actually make some changes. I'm at the right distance from the problem. I'm just too close to this problem. Am I making it worse by weighing in? Okay, when my children were teenagers and we had a church youth group, they'd come on and say this, and I'd say, oh, can we just sort this out at the youth group? And people didn't see a dad asking a question about the youth group. People saw the senior pastor of the church making a comment on how the youth group should run, and suddenly the problem's huge. Okay, I have to be very careful. Even now, if I phone someone up who's not at church on Sunday, oh, I'm sorry, Pastor, just chill, I just want to know if you're okay. So now I often delegate that because it makes the problem less big. Sometimes you weighing in on it, especially if you're high up in leadership, it makes the problem too big. Oh my goodness, that's a big problem. Someone's have to be involved. Someone's have to ask me how I was doing on that. You know? We want people, but on the other hand, if you're too far away from the problem and people feel you don't understand their problems and they don't understand, they think you don't get them, then they won't respect you. They won't trust you. But why is there an obsession with asking politicians how much milk costs? Have you noticed that? Well, how much does bread cost? How much does milk cost? Because we want leaders who know what we're going through. We want leaders who are facing the problems we're facing. And so we make sure people know you're not some sort of Superman who floats on earth. You're facing problems. And then you've got to think about this. Am I going to cause more problems? Probably my last point today. Am I going to cause more problems by solving the problem? Because if I'm going to solve the problem, I want to affect people's lives. Well, if I'm going to solve a problem by moving one person from one, right, you used to run the ushers, but now you're going to run the teas and coffees. I'll solve the teas and coffees problems. And all the ushers are like, hold on a minute. Okay, if I move a pastor from one church to another church, I'll solve the problem there. Well, I've now created a problem here. How will ignoring, and ask yourself, if I just ignore this problem and do nothing, how will it actually affect people? Is it the right time to solve this problem, or are there more important problems? Just because a problem's shouting in your face doesn't mean it's the most important problem to solve, doesn't mean it's the most pressing thing to spend your time, the trust bank you have, your energy, and your resources on. Do you have people to get it done? Can I get the people? How will it affect my walking towards my dream? How will it affect me as a leader? How will it affect this? How will it affect that? Ask these, analyze these things. How will me solving this way affect the culture of the church or the culture of the business? Will this problem compromise my core values? You see, problems can cause a worse problem, and that's they distract us. When a problem happens, the natural thing is to start looking at the problem. And if you're looking at the problem, you're not looking at your destination. Once you've solved a major problem, stop everything and get everyone to look back at the goal, because the goal was never to solve that problem. The goal was never to kill Goliath. David's destiny was not to kill Goliath. David's destiny was to have a free people. As soon as they killed Goliath, number one thing, how do we make sure the people are free? Because the problem's solved, that's great, but that wasn't the end goal. You understand? You need a big picture perspective. Now get help. That's my other piece of advice. Get some help. Have the time. Get help. The best problem solvers never work on their own. They get other people's perspectives, other people's creativity, other people's strength. Now, I know we get more credit if we do it all by ourselves, but we're not here for credit. We don't want the glory of doing it by ourselves. We want it done the best way possible. If it's your problem, you've got to make sure the solution and choose a solution. Okay? If it's your problem, And if it's a tree of life problem, then it's not stops with me. That doesn't mean I can't phone up Greg Moore. Doesn't mean I can't phone up Rob Marsman. Doesn't mean I can't phone up Bengt. Doesn't mean I can't phone up Richard and Jackie. Doesn't mean I can't phone up Lee. Doesn't mean I can't phone up Patience. Doesn't mean I can't get other perspectives. You need to create an environment where people can feel they're contributing to problem solving. If not, you're going to solve all problems on your own. Again, it's about character. You need to let people feel they can contribute to the house, not just their room. Create an environment where people speak up and the best idea wins. Many ideas mean some of those ideas will be good. And many good ideas mean some of those ideas will be awesome. So make sure you can listen to ideas. Never let people think you've got all the answers. Don't be that sort of, I'm the anointed man of God. No, we're all anointed. We all have wisdom. Ask people for their feedback and thoughts. Don't wait for people to come to you all the time. You go to them. What do you think of this? Be the coach, not the king. Keep your kingly anointing for dealing with sickness and poverty. When you get help, here's what's going to happen though. You're going to get more than one solution, because there's never just one way to solve a problem. The more options, the better. And even if you don't use a particular solution, at least you've been discussed it and thought about it, and you might have another problem next week and go, well, that solution didn't work for the first problem, but man, this solution is perfect for this problem, and you're going to be glad you had that conversation. And then the last thing really is do what needs to be done. Problem solving is not just about a mental exercise. You need to do something. Stop overthinking. There comes a point where if all you do is plan the best solution, the problem's going to get worse and worse. Sometimes you've got to jump in. You need some action. Your plan should always lead to action. Do something. And sometimes the best solutions happen while you're en route to doing the second best solution, or even at least a less good solution. But as you're doing it, you think, oh my goodness, we could tweak that, we could change that. Another person arises, that person could go there. And then finally, when you've solved the problem, reflect. What have you learned? What have you learned about problem solving from that problem? Problems are great. You get to improve yourself, improve other people's lives. You gain influence with people. You win trust with people. You get new perspectives. Man, that's a great attitude. You need to have that attitude. What do you get if you solve problems? David asked that. What do I get if I kill Goliath? Let me tell you what you get if you solve problems for people. Number one, you get an increase in credibility. You get an increase in credibility. Sorry, just trying to get my computer going where it needs to go. Okay. That might be immediate. It might take a while. One of the greatest problems, some of the greatest problems, some of the greatest solving of problems in Scripture were not appreciated immediately. Joseph's ability to interpret dreams took years, 2 years for it gone before Pharaoh. Or Mordecai exposed the assassination of the king's life, but it took years before the king remembered that. So you will get an increase in credibility, but not tomorrow. Number two, you get an increase in momentum. People get excited when problems are solved. There's a joy and enthusiasm. When Goliath died, everyone was excited. Everyone jumped up and started fighting Philistines. When Joseph had solved the problem of Pharaoh's dream, then he went from prison to palace. There's a movement when we solve problems. Number three, there's money when we solve problems. The better you are at problem solving, the more you'll be paid. Your salary right now is mainly determined by the level of problems you're solving. You get more friends. Everyone loves problem solvers. When David solved Goliath, he got the friendship of the crown prince. When Ruth solved the problem that Naomi had no one to help her, Boaz noticed her. And finally, you get an increase in standing. People will respect you more because people respect you on the basis of the problems you solve. And if you want promotion in life, think of some problems and solve some new problems, bring a fresh attitude. You might have to change the company you're solving problems for. You might have to change the way you're doing things. But I guarantee you solve problems, things will increase. Right. Awesome. Okay. Kay's asked a great question. How do you balance consulting and being a burden to people? That is a great question. Okay. Any more questions? Just type them in now. I've got about 5 minutes left and I've really finished saying everything I think I need to say. So let's answer some questions. Okay. So, if I phone up Robert, number one, it's about relationship. Okay. And it's about honor and respect. And so Robert knows if I come to him with a problem, it's a biggie. If it was a little problem, I would have solved it myself. If an elder phones me up and says, Ben, I need some help, number one, that's my job. That's my job, is to make sure those elders are supported, make sure the small groups are running well. So they're not a burden to me. In fact, we really, in Tree of Life, we have the opposite, and I'm trying to deal with it. Is that people won't come to me. They'll try and solve it themselves so much. And, sometimes I can see things they can't, and I can help, and so, You know, really, I don't think you, unless someone explicitly tells you, most people who are good leaders, and you come to them with a problem, that they can solve problems. So they can solve the problem of you coming to them with other problems. And they will tell you, they'll be able to tell you in a kind way, look, okay, stop coming to me with this. You've got this. You can solve this on your own. You don't need me to solve this for you. They'll let you know, okay? And especially in an organization, you know, where they're the boss, and they're the leader, and you come to them with a problem, they're not going to be upset with that, because that's their job. That's what they're called to do. You know, solving problems in Tree of Life is my job. That is what I do every day. I solve Tree of Life problems. Okay, whether those problems are caused by the government saying we're on lockdown, whether those problems are caused by a couple in the church having a fight, whether those problems are caused by someone who thinks they're in charge and they're not, and is trying to lead the church another way, whether those problems are caused by a guest speaker writing me a horrible letter, whatever, and I've got to solve those problems, you know, or Living Church wasn't too good this week, okay? And when we do eldership training, I actually teach them, I say, you've got to think about, can I solve this myself, or do I need help? You know, if you're at a Living Church and a couple turn up at Living Church and they seem a bit grumpy because they've had a row, and they calm down during the Living Church, and as they worship, their hearts melt, it's all good at the end, then you've solved that. You've solved that problem. You might want to let me know. Just send me a text or an email, but really, I'm glad it's solved. I really don't want to know much more. But, you know, if they turn up and it's not a row and one of them's had an affair, or someone's done this or someone's done that, then, you know, probably a good idea you get my help. You know, and it's about realizing that process. Can I solve this on my own? And most people set themselves too low. Most people think they can't solve problems they can solve. Okay. At least once I've been on the phone to Greg Moore in the States, and I'm trying to explain the problem to him. And as I start to explain it to him, suddenly I realize I know what I've got to do. I know exactly how to solve it. I know what I've got to do. And I just needed someone else to tell it to. And Greg's never had a problem with that, you know. And the people you choose, and if you're going to someone all the time and they're not helping, then maybe that's the wrong person to go to. Maybe they just don't have a buy-in. But most people, you know, they should have a buy-in with you. And that helps, you know, they like helping you. I hope that answers your question, Kay. Praise God. Colin says, really helped me at work. That's really good to hear. Because, you know, you should be a leader in industry, a leader in business, a leader in the family, a leader in every area. I'm glad it's helped you, Maria. Glad it's helped you, Alison. Okay, awesome. Praise God. So are there any more questions? The question button's disappeared for me. And that's the second time it's done that. No, there's no more new questions. You've got about 30 seconds to type in another question. Going once, going twice. Okay, I'm just going to pray for you all then. Okay, and don't forget, 10 o'clock today, you got the Healing University. Watch the WhatsApp group for the links, because we've had some issues with the Healing University links. And so whatever's in the WhatsApp, that's the right link. And I pray you have a great time. And Lee's got a session on today as well on finances at 10. And you can click on that from the Leadership Academy, and you can listen to that. Tonight at 7, Chris and Vaughn are leading worship. That'll solve your joy problem, make you nice and happy. Okay, no matter what's going on in the world, you know, no matter how invested you are in lockdown, American election, anything else, Chris and Vaughn are going to solve your joy problem. And then Lee is going to talk about being established in righteousness, which is going to solve a lot of problems. So tonight it's going to be awesome. 7 o'clock. It's on YouTube. It's on Facebook. Tell your friends. Invite people. Get your family together. Sit and watch that. It's going to change your life. Amen. Awesome. Praise God. Father, I thank you for everyone who's listening to the sound of my voice today. And Lord, I pray more than anything else, you give us an attitude that embraces problems. Not we go looking for them or hunting for them, but when we see them, we face them down. We don't run away. We take them on. We beat them. And we become those who killed our thousands, who killed our tens of thousands. And we walk in everything you have for us, Lord, in the name of Jesus. Amen. Awesome. Praise God. Well, it's been a joy to be with you guys today. No problems have been typed in while I've been praying. So I'm going to end this here. Have a great Saturday, whatever you're doing. Cheers. Thank you. Bye-bye.